Hey, everybody, welcome to All Access Pass, where we go behind the scenes and speak with CNC industry professionals around the globe. And today we have some pretty exciting guests. We have Roush Yates Engines, and we representing Roush Yates is Jeff Clark. He is the Executive Vice President of NASCAR Business, and Todd English, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Marketing. Hey, guys, how you doing today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Well, thanks for
Awesome.
having us on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Yeah, so maybe we can start. Just tell us a little bit about what Roush Yates Engines does.
So to give you the idea of and really full picture of what Roush Yates Engine does, you have to go to the history. And the history really starts with Robert Yates. And Robert Yates got his break with Holman Moody in the 60s and started his craft at engine building and built a really good reputation for building very good, durable engines, but very powerful engines. And his secret sauce, so to say, was in the cylinder heads. And as he went through the 70s, 80s, and got into the early 90s, developed cylinder heads primarily on the Ford program that were 50 horsepower better than the field. And it turned into a situation where this famous driver in the number 3 black car was complaining every weekend to NASCAR about these cylinder heads, that they finally brought him into the trailer, the NASCAR trailer, and did a review with Robert and made Robert show what he had done differently on his heads. And what that ended up doing was putting it set the table for Robert Yates to where he could either turn the heads in and they'd be outlawed, or he had to find a way to produce the cylinder heads in mass production for all the Ford teams, but then show the Chevrolet and the other groups in the garage how to create templates, and basically gave NASCAR the playbook of how to monitor cylinder head production. Well, Robert saw the opportunity, he agreed to it and turned the cylinder head design over, but those days took about 3 months to make a set of cylinder heads. A lot of hand grinding, hand porting, hardening processes, repeating that cycle over and over again, which was literally 3 months to produce a set of heads. So in order to produce them on a mass scale for over 15, Ford racing teams at the time, he had to enlist the help of CNC technology. And he was soon to do his homework, found a small aerospace shop where someone was willing to relocate. And Robert Yates bought his first machine in 1990 and started mass producing what was called the C cylinder head. That was the Ford C version of what we race now as the FR9. But that C head went into mass production, and it became known as the Yates cylinder head. And the proof in the pudding was when teams who had always questioned, like, how good are these cylinder heads? When the Wood brothers or Junior Johnson or even Jack Roush received these cylinder heads and did their testing, just bolted these heads on and literally picked up 50 horsepower. They realized how much Robert had brought to that field and the technology and the advancement. So they gave Robert tremendous respect and credibility for what he had done for the Ford camp. So going forward, since that was put in place, Ford started to rely on Robert for a lot of technical information and input. And before that, Jack Roush was the cornerstone of Ford. Roush had a really good relationship from the engineering standpoint at Roush Industries. He had spent his whole time working with them in their warranty departments and their engineering departments, fixing production line items for the OE cars. And so all of a sudden, this new guy's in the mix and getting a lot of attention. And it was soon to be found out that, hey, Ford saw that Toyota was coming to the sport. We've got these two great minds. We're spending a lot of money in development with both of them. Let's combine our resources here. Let's get the efficiencies put together, and let's see what we can do. So in 2003, they started talking how to put this together. There's a really neat story when they had their top 25 success line items to make this merger a success. And when they finally sat down at the table, 23 of those 25 items were the same. They were very similar in their approach, their process. Jack had a very strong engineering background, and Robert had learned all of his through experience and tribal knowledge, but just retained it like an encyclopedia. So they really got to know each other better. It turned out they had the same birthday. So all the stories you heard about their rivalry in the garage area, even to wrecking each other in rental cars sometimes after the race hours were over because they were mad at each other, that went away and they became fast friends. And the glue between Jack and Robert was Doug Yates. Doug was an engineer, a mechanical engineer by education at NC State. And that's who Doug obviously gravitated towards, and his son. He organized our engine shop, and Jack really gravitated towards the engineering side. And through today, Jack and Doug are still very good friends. They talk about a lot of items on engine development. Jack is another of those great resources and encyclopedia mind that keeps us going. But that's the history of how we got started, and really excited about what we're doing today. And we'll talk about more about the next gen car and things that have really evolved in today's marketplace. But the engine technology really got fast forwarded through the 90s and the 2000s with CNC technology. And as you all know, all the software and electronic support has evolved so much to keep pace and actually set the pace. So companies like Mastercam set the pace. And that's the whole attraction from us as original users of the products. But we knew what we needed to get to the next level, to be competitive, to outperform our competitors. And Mastercam has been with us the whole way. So that's kind of my intro there. And Todd, if you'd like to add some things that I may have missed, please step up.
Yeah, Brian, I think, Jeff did a really good job of talking about the history and where we started. And throughout our career of manufacturing, we felt like that we had really a strong skill set in machining, in manufacturing, really for the racing industry. And really about 2014 or 15, we started to transition. We felt like we were very successful, again, on the racing side, motorsports. At that time, we challenged ourselves to really move into other industries. So today, manufacturing looks a lot different. So behind me, we are in one of our facilities here in Mooresville, North Carolina. This facility is 88,000 square foot. A lot of automation, 65 CNC machines, and we've even started to transition and automate some of our CMM equipment. As we move into the future, we're very excited about manufacturing, very excited about growth. We're actually in the process of expanding another 55,000 square foot facility right behind this 88,000 square foot manufacturing facility, in trying to really kind of vertically integrate and really be the one-stop shop for our customers. Our major markets right now is still motorsports in general, internal and external. And I think Jeff at some point will talk about the NASCAR Next Gen. But we've also moved into aerospace. We have moved into the defense market. I smile and kind of joke with our team. I think space today is its own category because there's a lot of growth in that area. And we're also in the medical market as well. So very excited to be here and kind of share our story. But at the end of the day, we're very passionate and excited about the future of manufacturing here in the U.S.
Yeah, the whole, just talking about manufacturing, I was gonna really, chat a little bit about, how you got into it, but it's clear the whole passion for the auto sports kind of led to CNC, which led to, the bigger and better and more complex manufacturing. I've been to, your aerospace shop. It's unbelievable, LED lights, they could eat off the floor. It's just absolutely beautiful place. So it's really it's really cool to see how, a passion for race car leads to something like, this really high-end manufacturing. That's pretty wild. So speaking of back to NASCAR, you guys have a new format for this year. Is that correct? The with the NASCAR cars?
Yes, that's correct. So they started the, I guess, cost conservative spending initiatives about 2 years ago, and it started with the engines. They started putting seals on the engines, running multiple races. And as they started looking at these other cost-saving initiatives, they realized that the car itself was just incredibly expensive. And to give you a raw number, by the time you built your car, all the engineering, aerodynamics, all the aspects you put into a car, it was about $1 million a copy. And wow, you would have 20 race cars in your fleet. So $20 million sitting there that you would run at different races, and at any moment you could have a wreck and destroy it, wholesale loss. And every time you built that car, it was evolving. There was new engineering going into the suspension, new underbody aerodynamics. I mean, the aerodynamics were just running down a really expensive path. Mm-hmm. Doug Yates and a few very sharp-minded engineers put together an idea, and they pitched it to Jim France in NASCAR, and it was what became the next gen car. And what it was a cost efficient, single source supply car. And what I mean by that, all the key components would be put up for bid as RFP, and different companies would bid on these components. So there was multiple items. Obviously, the chassis itself, the tube frame, all the suspension components, the roll bar system, the shifter mechanism. There were even the body parts. The body parts are very, very identical to the OE production Mustang, Camaro, and Camry. So the car is very good looking. And then it also was updated for technology. We were still running the old car with a H pattern, 4-speed transmission. The new car has a true transaxle, which sits between the rear tires. And it's very much like an OE production car with independent rear suspension now instead of the straight like truck axle. Sequential gearbox, so 6-speed, pull gear. It's not a paddle shift, but it's a sequential stick pull. But the other thing that really came on was the 18-inch wheels, bringing more stylized wheels instead of the old steel wheels we raced. Went from a 15-inch wheel to 18-inch. And when you see this car, just the aesthetics are incredible, but the handling capabilities are amazing. The aerodynamics were made even across all cars. There's an under panel where there's no more undercar aerodynamics. And the total cost of this car is $450,000. So the $1 million price point was cut in half. And then they put a limit to your chassis count. So you can only have 7 cars in your fleet. So immediately your $20 million inventory was reduced down to $3.5, $4 million. And by single source supply, it helped all the suppliers get really good at their cost initiatives. They knew that they didn't have to compete out there in across like 20 different suppliers. But NASCAR holds you, very, very accountable for what the cost is and justifying that cost so that the price does stay reasonable. And that's where Mastercam became a very critical part for Roush Yates Manufacturing Solutions. Roush Yates, one of the largest components is the upright and hub. And that is the new spindle, basically for the front, the steering, with the hub, which went from 5 lug nuts to a single large nut, very much like IndyCar and Formula One. But it's a very massive component. The forging that it starts out as is about 62 pounds. It's about 15 inches by 30-inch slug forge ingot. And when it's finished, it's about 15.5 pounds. So you can imagine the amount of material that's removed, the amount of chips that it creates. Also, you can look at the efficiency that is needed on that machine to clear that material fast, and also the accuracy needed. We're carrying some 4/10 tolerances in areas on the bearing retainer. So those areas are super important to being consistent. And we're not only making these for the Ford teams, we supply this to the entire NASCAR garage. So Ford, Chevy, Toyota are all receiving these components, and they must be identical, built to print, machine to print. But there's a lot of other processes that go into this, and each year we're challenged to get the price better. How can we find efficiencies in the machining? And like anything, when you get around a product and you spend more time in it, there's ways to be optimizing the spindle time, right? How can we reduce spindle time, but still deliver the accuracy and the finished look on the part? And again, that's another area where Mastercam has been essential for us to deliver that part. The cost savings initiatives that NASCAR has put on us is a great blessing, kind of saving us from ourselves. We're our own worst enemy in spending money. It's almost like the arms race. If you think your competitor has a certain tool, you've got to have it, and it runs away on cost. This new car has been very, very dynamic. It's been crowd pleasing to the fan base, and it's been very challenging for the drivers. I think you've seen a lot of the very even talented drivers have wrecks, spins, that they're not used to this car yet with independent rear suspension. But one of the other areas that is a huge advantage was this year we went to the LA Coliseum.
I saw that race. Yeah.
Right. And the old car, you would have never made that corner. The old
Yeah.
car could not have turned. The suspension capabilities with caster camber on this car, even in the rear wheels with the spindles in the rear now with independent suspension, that's what gave this car the ability to be so agile and rotate. And it put on a phenomenal race there. I hope we go back to that as an all-star race maybe eventually. But I think that was a great way to showcase the car, show its capabilities. And as we've gone through the year, it has really proven to be safe and very competitive. And the ultimate goal was the cost savings. And just like I said, as we've gotten into those areas, Mastercam has been right there with us for the entire ride.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's it's really cool to see. It reminds me, what was the old saying? You know, race it Sunday, buy it Monday, or something like that.
Win
But
on Sunday, sell on Monday.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it definitely reminded me of that, and they do definitely have a resemblance of the the cars themselves. So it's pretty interesting. And the Coliseum, I mean, there were so many cars in the field relative to the size of the track. It almost seemed like it made probably at least half to three quarters of the way around just in cars. So the first place guy was only a little bit a little bit behind the last place guy. So that
Oh,
was
Yeah.
quite an
And,
event.
and Brian, if I can add to that, Jeff did a good job. And I think at the end of the day, we want these cars to be production relevant. So I think NASCAR, all the OEMs have worked well together to make sure what we're racing looks similar to what we drive in our production cars. And we can also transfer the technology. NASCAR's also done a good job. We talked about the LA Coliseum. We are very fortunate to win that first race. This weekend we're racing at Gateway, so we do like these first-time tracks. We seem like we've got a lot of success. So
Yeah,
see what
awesome.
happens this weekend. But a lot of excitement around the sport itself. I think the new car, again, there is some energy behind it. And to Jeff's point, it's basically reset the field, and you're seeing a lot of teams really come out of the box that maybe were not as much success in the past, but they're really dominating today. So it's leveled the playing field for all the competitors. And for us, it challenges us on the engine side to find that next competitive advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's what draws people to racing in NASCARs. When there's a kind of a more of an even playing field and anybody can win at any given day. I think that's great for the sport, certainly.
Yeah,
So
and we always say we want to win by, I'm gonna see this much, right? I want to win every race, but I want to make sure we're winning by that much. And
exactly.
we are in a competitive business, and entertainment's part of it. People want to see a good race, and we want to put on a good show.
So you had mentioned that some of these parts you supply actually all the teams. Now, how does that work out from a competitive standpoint? You kind of have to wear two hats to some degree?
So that's a great example. So I can show you right now. As I became the face of our company in the next gen category, um, we always had a Ford logo on our shirt. Today, I wear Roush Yates Manufacturing Solutions, and I do not have my Ford brand when I go to the racetrack. And that's just showing respect to the other competitors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of meetings that I have to sit in with the leaders from Toyota and the leaders from Chevrolet, and I think it shows them our commitment. Um, the other thing to ensure the fact that we would not ever favor, a Ford team over any other team are the processes NASCAR has put in place for the rules checking. They're scrutinizing every area that is a part of the competition. And what I mean by that, when we assemble the wheel hub, there's a set of bearings in there, and there's a certain amount of resistance. And we have developed a machine that has to torque each nut on that hub identically and then show the rolling resistance on that hub. And we have to have them all within about 15 Newton meters of each other, which 15 Newton meters of rolling resistance, you and I couldn't even feel with our hand, the drag on
Right.
it as far as the drag on the bearings. We have to keep that data relevant and recorded. NASCAR can look at it anytime. And that's what keeps it honest. We also have to seal this device. Once we make it, we have an RFI chip that we put on it so that that nut can never be broken. If the teams were allowed to go in there, and I know this from being a racer in my 30 years in this industry, if there was a slight chance we could get in there and make an advantage out of it, we would, but that costs money. We'd probably go to a ceramic bearing. We would change the spacer tension we'd get that thing spinning like a top to where there's no drag on it whatsoever, so it wasn't creating any frictional loss on power.
Sure.
So those are the things that we maintain for NASCAR, and they regulate it, and the teams can audit it anytime if there's a question. And then on the rebuild, we're the only allowed official rebuild center for this product. And so we have the new components going to teams. The uprights can go buy the certificates up to 3,000 miles. It's very interesting, the teams this year that have brought them back every week just as a due diligence for rebuilds. And the other teams that we haven't even seen them since they went out as new back in January and February. And the teams that are not bringing them back have a lot more wins to date than the ones that are bringing them every week. So
Right.
it's very interesting, different team strategies, and this cost savings initiative, it works. The teams, like I said, there's teams that haven't brought these back, and it's built to spec, and they're getting maximum mileage out of them, where other teams are spending a lot of budget just because they're being very sensitive and not wanting any issues to arise. So I
Right.
think in time, they'll get better. People have confidence that they go longer. But to answer your question directly, it's just it's been just a process of, it's new. We're so used to being like extreme attention to detail people in this industry and kind of overworking areas, but that's our nature. It's very much a military mindset. You've got to be prepared for anything and anything.
Yeah, no, it's great. You're supporting your own team, but as well supporting the sport as well. So it's a great collaboration with everybody. So back to the manufacturing, just, what would you guys tell young people trying to get into manufacturing? What really led you guys into it, and how would you enter this industry?
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing that we like to talk about is just every day is a new challenge, right? And you get to work on various parts from various industries. And again, I mentioned kind of our core business within motorsports, aerospace, defense, space, and even medical. So I think that's exciting for us that it's always changing. The other thing that I think is great about manufacturing today is a very clean-based working environment. So at some point, if they have the opportunity to look at our website and look at our machines, we want to be world class, just like in our racing business. And we continue to invest heavily in machines. These machines, as well as the Mastercam, the technology is always advancing. So that's exciting. Again, being able to kind of continue to lead the pack, per se, and work on advancements in technology. So a very clean-based environment. It seems like individuals that get into manufacturing could start at any age, and a lot of individuals start, on manual equipment, and they go to, maybe work in a machine shop, maybe in high school or after high school. Maybe they enter some type of technical program for many years, and again, possibly do an internship. But again, that experience is critical. And I think looking at today, it's great to see individuals come up through kind of our pipeline, our development, and it's great to see individuals go to schooling, work on the floor as machinists for a couple of years, then move into programming. And we're fortunate to have that opportunity here. And today we do have 4 of our programmers that graduated 4 or 5 years ago from a technical school. So again, the industry itself, you can see we're very robust on it. We have a lot of open houses, even PTA events here, because not only do we want to show students that there's a great career path, but we also want to educate parents out there what manufacturing looks like today and potential career paths.
Yeah, and yeah, certainly it looks quite a bit different than the years ago, and there's just so many opportunities.
Yeah, if I can add one thing to that, Brian, I think it's also important that manufacturing is so large. I think when people think of machining, which is fantastic, they can be a machinist, they can be a programmer, but look at all the support industries that support manufacturing, right? So looking behind you, somebody has to sell and service these machines, right? I think there's some work holdings behind you, there's tooling behind you, there's coolant behind you. So there's so many other factors that I think that go into manufacturing today that we need to continue to educate everyone about potential jobs within manufacturing. So I just think it's an exciting time. It's a growing field, and we're happy to be part of it.
Yeah, and and we're proud to be partners of you guys. I mean, going down to Mooresville is quite the treat. You have your engine shop and your machine shop, and just as one industry, or I should say, one shop supports the other one, and you have a really good collaboration of all the individual arms of your business. So it's great to see, in terms of manufacturing and what it can produce. Well, awesome. That's, just it's really good to catch up with you guys, and great to see the new format with NASCAR. I think seems like it's catching on, giving it a little bit of a new flair to the sport, and glad that Mastercam is part of that, and certainly again, proud to be partners with you guys. And so I do have a set of questions, a little rapid fire questions, just a little bit about, you personally, if you want to answer. We'll dive in deep here. So, and you
Just
can,
the competition for Todd now, we got to answer first or ring a bell, like.
yeah, 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 you have to buzz in, and then, and then we're gonna pick an answer. So I'll just start out. So if you could, and again, just kind of short, quick answers is fine. So if you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, who would they be?
Elon.
I like that.
Elon Musk. I would say he's right up there, but I would say Jim France. Jim France with NASCAR.
Awesome. Awesome. What's the first career you dreamed of as a kid?
Race car driver.
Yeah, I wanted to be a fireman when I was younger, and I really admire the emergency rescue side of what we see at the racetrack, and I was always fascinated with the trucks as a kid. But I thought I was going to be a fireman when I was a kid.
Awesome. And actually, just not to break too far from our rapid fire questions, but I remember a story about the you were on the pit crew at one point, right? Is that
Yes, sir.
right?
Jackman for Davey Allison is where I started, and that was a really neat story of how I earned that position. Where Robert had me out in the parking lot practicing, running around the car, sent me in the building to get a drink of water. He said, "When you come out, you're gonna go as hard as you can go, get your best time, and I'll let you know if you got the job." Well, when I was on that last run, I'm going around the front of the car, and you're kind of laid over like a water skier making a cut on a slalom turn, and my feet come up from underneath me. And I go down my elbow, and I bounce off my elbow, and I get up as fast as I can, and I get to the left side of the car, and I finish the stop. And I'm just dejected, and Robert says, "Come here, let me show you something." He points to the front of the car, and there was all this kitty litter stuff up there. And I was like, "Robert, that wasn't here when I was practicing. I don't know where it came from." He said, wait a minute. He said, "When we go to the racetrack, that's called Speedy Dry, and it's going to be there, and you're going to fall." He said, "I had to find out if you're going to cry about your elbow or if you're going to finish that pit stop." He goes, "You got the job, kid. You're really fast." So I had to earn that trial by fire, and I still got the scars on my elbow to prove it. But that was a really good test, and he wanted to see if I was going to be tough enough to finish the stop or if I was going to roll around and rub my elbow.
I love that story. Okay. Who or what was your biggest teacher?
I say Miss Bowen. I think she challenged me, I'm going to say in middle school in mathematics. And I just thought she was able to persuade, trying to think of the right word there, but she motivated me, right, to kind of get going in math. And I think without that, I feel like I would have fell behind. So it's that inspiration, it's that leadership, it's that motivation that again helped kind of push me further than probably I would have.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I've got two. I said my dad, first of all. My dad was a lot of different careers growing up from college and growing up in the home. I mean, started out as a truck driver right out of college, then moved into automotive industry and the finance departments with different groups, and then ended up with my grandfather with an insurance company, and they grew into a really large brokerage. But the business side of my dad, and then the personal side, taking care of his family and all those, good structure items were really important to us. And again, one of the best and biggest teachers I ever had. But the other one's Robert Yates, and that was kind of like when you grew up and went to your career. I chose to move away from my family business of insurance as an underwriter to pursue racing as a jackman on the weekends and an apprentice in the machine shop and in the engine department. And 30 years later, I mean, it's the best decision I ever made. But Robert was right there to teach you help you when you made mistakes to get you back on track, and really make you think through every process in line, not just what you're doing today, but think about how what you're doing interacts with the next person that's going to handle these parts, or what processes you can do better. So when you do hand off these parts, they're better finished. The machining's cleaner. They're prepped and ready to go. So that was the two in my life.
Awesome. What are you most proud of professionally?
I'll say this. The thing I'm most proud of professionally is the business we've built. And what I mean by business, not just the financial aspects. I'm talking more about the team. What Doug Yates has done here with Roush Yates Manufacturing Solutions and Roush Yates Engines is phenomenal. And his mindset is a visionary of today, where Robert was in his era a big visionary. But to be a part of that and the team that we've built, that's the proudest day I have when we make parts that are going into the defense sector and helping, efforts, communications that are going on, both, with radio and, out in outer space satellite support. Those are the things that make you really feel you're making a difference. And some of the things we did back during the COVID pandemic with ventilator parts and face shields. So I'm just very proud to be part of our team, and that's my biggest professional moment of pride.
Very cool.
Yeah, Brian, I would agree with that. I think from a professional standpoint, we're fortunate to work for the Roush Yates organization. It's been a great professional move for myself, and we've met a lot of good people on the way. So there's a lot of great partners like Mastercam. There's a lot of great customers that we get to work with. At the end of the day, all these customers and all these race teams have turned into personal relationships and friendships. And I think that's dynamic, that we've surrounded ourselves with the right people, the right organizations for all of us to be successful and continue to pushing each other to be better.
Yep. Awesome. Well, that's awesome. And, if I had to answer the same question, I think I'd answer it in a similar fashion, being part of a team and building, helping build Mastercam right from the early beginnings is definitely something I'm proud of as well. So it's great when you can be part of a team and kind of see those rewards at the end.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Do we get to ask you a few questions on this? Me and Jeff
Sure.
have a couple.
Absolutely.
What's your favorite race car?
Well, that's a kind of a loaded question because, I'm talking to some Ford guys and I'm a bit of an F1 fan. So I'm going to have to say probably anything Ford with an FR9 engine, and it's probably my favorite.
I like it, right? Very
Yeah.
creative.
You guys rock. Well, I will say this. So every, having the relationship with you guys and watching the races on Sunday, I'm always rooting for you guys because, when Ford wins, the Mastercam wins. That's kind of how it feels. And, feels like we have this connectivity through manufacturing and, proud to see when you guys win. So always rooting for you guys for anything with a Roush Yates engine in it.
We have another car that when you come visit, Doug is now the owner of an original 1965 Shelby Cobra. It's a reproduction of the 50th anniversary. We have been building engines with Shelby Engine Company for the past 10 years.
Wow.
The engine builder here. This car is beautiful, and it is a lot of power. So we need to put you behind the steering wheel of that when you come in town, and sure you'll have a lot of fun with that.
Oh, that sounds great. And just for the record, I got to drive Doug Yates Ford GT, and that's definitely right up there with the favorite race cars as well. That was quite the experience.
Yeah, Brian, I think you put more miles on it than Doug has throughout his entire.
I love that, and let's keep it that way. So as soon as he starts to creep up there and have me down again, we'll even the score.
Absolutely.
And then I guess lastly, what's the best piece of career advice anyone has ever given you?
I think to me, Brian, it is, internships, trying different professions, different career paths, potentially at an early age if you can. I think that experience is so beneficial. I know throughout high school, did a few internships. I know in college kind of did a few internships, and I think that steered me away from some fields and directed me towards others that I thought that I would be a better fit and I would enjoy. So I think it's, I don't want to say a little bit of trial and error, but definitely get out there and kind of try different careers or ways that you might want to go. In that way, you can clearly determine a path of which direction might be best for you and your family.
Yeah, I think I could add a little bit to that. Over the years being in the sport, we've had the privilege of being in some arenas and speaking to significant people, coaches. Lou Holtz, for one, is one that always sticks in my mind. And he came to speak to us one time and talked about how he became successful and having all these dreams of what he was going to do when he grew up and, 5 years and 10 years down the road. And he could never get there, could never close the gap on that. And he came up with what he called a win strategy. You think the letters WIN. And he said, what's important now? He said, you have to look at every day when you get up, how do you succeed? Make your bed, get your habits and perfected. And then when you approach your family and your work, you do everything that's important that day. And if you start building that regimen, you'll reach those 3, 5, 10-year goals. So his win strategy, and I followed that for the past 20 years. What's important now? You have to take care of things now, the good and the bad, and don't be apathetic. Don't hold back on things. Go head first into it and just get things done. So that was a really good lesson that I've listened to and followed and has helped me. I think be a good part of success stories with different teams and programs. And I use it every day today. So what's important now?
What's important now? I love that. I love that that mantra. In fact, I think I'm going to start using it here later in my life. But I think it's never too late.
Never too late.
Well, thanks again, guys. I think that's a wrap. And yeah, it's always great to chat with you guys. And we'll have to catch up at a race this year, hopefully New Hampshire maybe. And it's just great the whole all the manufacturing facilities you have going on down there in Mooresville and your connection with NASCAR and aerospace and manufacturing and NC machining. It's just it's great what you guys have built and accomplished. And again, proud to be a little piece of that as well.
Thank you. And as we've said throughout this discussion, you guys are an essential component of what we do every day. And we love Mastercam. We love the tools. And our people, our technicians, really embrace it. It is the core of what we do every day. So thank you.
Welcome. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. And we'll chat next time.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Good day.